Alright, today we're going to be changing the oil on my 2012 F-150 with the 5.0 V8 engine. It's just a two-wheel drive. Here you can see everything we're going to need today. I'll have kind of everything listed out in the description below, but I'm just looking at the manual real quick. For the 5.0, there's an oil filter, FL500S Motorcraft, which is what I always like to use, FL500S. Get that at Walmart or the Ford dealership. And then if you look over here for the 5-liter engine oil capacity, it's calling for 7.7 quarts. So I've got 5W20. I've got 10 quarts of 5W20. I like to use Mobile One, full synthetic. Got the high mileage because I'm about 95,000 miles on my truck. But again, the Motorcraft would be a good choice as well, or anything else full synthetic. All right, first things first, we're gonna get her up on the ramps. Don't need to use ramps. I've done it before without the ramps, but just for the video, it'll make it a little bit easier to show everything. So put her up on the ramps, and then we'll put a wheel chock behind the wheel and then get started. All right, she's up on the ramps. Got the wheel chock in place. She's in park, got the parking brake on. Just going to pop the hood right here. That. And go around the front, pick up a little bit here. There'll be a little latch under here, under the front there. If you can see my hand or not. There we go. Just gotta move that over, and then you can pick up on the hood. Mine's a little harder because of my brush guard. And then you'll want to just take off the oil cap here, oil fill cap. Make sure when we do pull the drain, we don't pull a vacuum and it can flow freely. Go under the truck. Make sure you got safety glasses on. Don't want to get anything in your eyes. I'm just going to go under the front of the truck here in this case. I already got my board and pan set up. You can see kind of right behind where the wheels are, in the center of the truck. If you look up behind this cross beam here, you got your drain plug. So we'll be using a 15mm socket to loosen that up. There she goes. And I ran my truck a little bit to get the engine oil warm, so it will be hot, so be careful. Wearing gloves to help protect my hand. And just like that, break it loose, get your hand on it. There she goes. And we will let that drain. Alright, the oil is starting to kind of trickle out. I actually swapped out my drain pans. My 7-quart got close to full, so I brought in my backup. And so, still a little bit left, but for now, I'm just gonna put the plug back in, just by hand, and move on to the filter. Kind of let a little bit of oil accumulate there, and after we do the filter, I'll come back and pull this again to finish draining it completely. Alright, now we're gonna work on the filter. So as you can see, I've got some wood laid down in case we splash some oil. I've got these 2 drain pans set up here because right here's the oil filter. If you look right up here, I'm at the front of the truck looking back. So if you just look up right there, oil filter's right here. You can see it's got this little tray. When you pull the oil filter, this tray is supposed to route the oil out of the spout in the front here, and in the back it's got another one. Let's see if you can see it. Right up there. Right here, where it's also supposed to come out of. I've had mixed luck when I pull these. It usually just goes everywhere. You gotta try your best to catch it, but I'm gonna try to take this off by hand. And if I can't, which I probably can't. Oh, here it comes. Here we go. Got a nice grippy glove, so that helps. And I just kind of went at it from the front. Kind of move these hoses out the way. Just grab onto it. I was able to get a good grip and turn it. So here she comes. We'll see where she spills. Probably everywhere. Just turning counterclockwise. Alright, see it's starting to come out the back. I'm just gonna turn that upside down. Looks like it's actually draining out of where it's supposed to. So maybe the secret is putting it up on ramps to get it to drain where it's supposed to. So we'll let that drain for a minute or so, and go grab the other filter and screw it back on. So you look up there. That's where the new filter is going to go. You can see right there. That's where it threads onto. So we'll go get the other filter. Alright, here's a new filter. It's like I said, Motorcraft FL500S for the for my case, the 2012 F-150 at the 5.0. This is it. I always like to put the date when I change the oil on my oil filters. We've got a pretty extensive spreadsheet where I keep track of all the maintenance in all the cars, but just kind of as a backup, I always put the date on there. If you look on the inside of the box here, it's got directions. So what it's saying is you know, unscrew the old one, number one. Number two is telling you to put a little bit of oil on the new filter gasket. So this black rubber piece is the gasket. It makes a seal against the engine. So what I like to do is I'll get a little bit of the old oil on my fingertip, just kind of run that around here on the new filter, and that'll just lubricate this rubber gasket to help it slide on easier, so it doesn't tear or anything once it contacts the engine. So after we do that, number three, we'll just screw it back on. So what this is telling you is you want to screw it on until it makes contact, so lightly by hand until it sits flush right there, and then another 3/4 to 1 turn, and then the rest is just fill it back with oil and check the oil. So we will again look under here where we need to go. You always want to do this by hand. So again, I've oiled my gasket. Gonna get it on there and just line it up. It should spin freely, you know, minimal effort. So now it's starting to get a little tight there. So it's contacting the surface now. So what I'm going to do now is get my glove on with the grippy and give it another 3/4 rotation, between 3/4 and 1 full rotation. Yeah, got my glove on, so that's about a half rotation. Keep going. Okay, that's about 3/4. If you saw where how the date was written first, it was kind of pointing up in that direction. That's about 3/4. So it's about as much as I can do with my hand, so I'll call that good. All right, now we got the filter on. We'll go back to the drain plug and finish that off. So let's see, back here. If you remember, I just kind of did that by hand earlier, so it wouldn't leak while we were working on the filter. So I'm gonna come back, undo this. Just get any was just kind of trickling last time. You can see this is from the filter. It's still draining on me a little bit and dripping. So this is really kind of not a great design because it keeps dripping for a day or so. Alright, so we're gonna let that keep draining now. Alright, this is finally kind of coming to an end as far as dripping, so we're gonna put the plug back in. On other cars, you know, historically you've always had a drain plug washer, but from what I understand, this plug kind of has a little gasket type of deal built into it. So probably at some point it'd be a good idea to get a new one. Maybe my next oil change at about 105,000 miles, I'll go ahead and get a new plug so that that gasket will be fresh. But I'm gonna go ahead and screw this in by hand. I always do this by hand, you know, to get it flush at least. You don't want to use a tool and risk ruining the threads. Couldn't find a torque value for this online, but everything else I read looked to be, you know, about 20 foot-pounds, which is not a lot. So again, just snug it up by hand, then get you a little wrench on there and just make sure it's snug. 20 foot-pounds. If you got a torque wrench, you know, you can put 20 foot-pounds on it, but it's really not a lot of force. You don't want to over tighten this. So do that and clean this up so that if we come back later and see any oil, you know, we know it's an actual leak and not just leftover from the change. So with that, we're all done under here. We'll go up top and start filling her back up. All right, if you remember, the owner's manual calls for 7.7 quarts, I believe. So I'm gonna, there's the oil fill, put a funnel in there. I'll probably put, I don't know, probably 6 quarts in there. And then I'll start it up, get it off the ramps, get it on level ground, check the oil, and then see if she needs more at that point. But definitely want to, you know, put at least 5 or 6 quarts in it before you start it up. Never want to run the engine dry. So we'll go ahead and start pouring some in. All right, I put 6 quarts in, put the cap back on. I'm gonna go ahead and get her off the ramps. Just pro tip, don't forget to pull the chalk out. Done that before. So we'll check her in a second. All right, back on level ground. We'll go check the dipstick, see where we're at. Dipstick's over here on the driver's side. I always like to take it out, clean it first, because when it runs, it's, you know, inside of there it's splashing oil around, so I might get a false reading. So clean it off. Now that it's not running, I'll let it run for about a minute or so after putting the 6 quarts in. We'll check it again, see where we're at. And looks like we're close, but go ahead and add some more oil. All right, I went ahead and put another quart in, so I'm at about 7 quarts. You can see the bottom hole here. It's got the 2 holes there. You can see it's got oil in the bottom hole, not the top one. So that tells us that we're, you know, somewhere above the bottom hole and below the top one, which is where we want to be. So I'm just going to leave it there, about 7 quarts. Calls for 7.7. I usually end up putting less than the full 7.7. So with that, we'll move on to resetting the oil life inside the cab. All right, now to reset the oil life, just turn on the accessories for the truck. I'm gonna get new tire pressure monitors. So you know, navigate over to, I believe it's settings, hit OK, vehicle, OK, and scroll down, oil life reset. So it's set to 100%, so just, you know, hold OK, resetting, reset complete. There you go. Now you're ready to roll. Just a couple of final notes. My oil filter came off pretty easy, but in the past I have had to use one of these oil filter wrenches to you know, get on the filter and crank it off. So if you're having problems doing it by hand, you know, you can pick these up wherever. This is a Fram. Another thing, see a couple of spots of oil under there. That's from taking off the filter. That oil that fell in that tray underneath the oil filter, it'll drip out for the next day or so. So don't be alarmed if you see a couple little drip areas around the filter. If they're still there, you know, if it's still dripping after a week, then you might want to take a look. And then finally, with your used oil, make sure you dispose of it responsibly. I like to use my empty oil jugs that I just emptied out. I'll put some X's on them so that I know that they are used, and I'll just pour the old oil in there. And I like to take mine to the Walmart Auto Center and go inside and sign your name and tell them how much oil you're dropping off. They'll usually take it. I think AutoZone and O'Reilly's will take it also, but just make sure you dispose of that responsibly. Thanks for watching.